Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we have a pressing topic to discuss, the October 2023 Gaza-Israel conflict. This recent escalation has captured global attention and has raised significant concerns. We will provide you with a comprehensive overview, highlighting the crux of the matter and the important events surrounding this issue. Before we dive into the details, let's start with some background information. On October 7, 2023, Palestinian militant groups, primarily led by Hamas, initiated a large-scale invasion and offensive against Israel from the Gaza Strip. This marked the first direct conflict within Israel's boundaries since the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, and it has had far-reaching consequences. Hamas named this operation, Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, and it began with a rocket barrage against Israel and vehicle-transported incursions into Israeli territory. These events have been compared to the start of a third Palestinian intifada. The conflict was fueled by months of escalating tensions, including attacks by Jewish settlers, clashes at Al-Aqsa Mosque, and rising casualties on both sides. Hamas cited these events as justification for its offensive. In response, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu advocated for a national unity government to combat the Palestinian offensive. As the conflict unfolded, Hamas fired thousands of rockets from Gaza into Israel, causing significant damage and casualties among Israeli civilians. Israel declared a state of emergency, and Prime Minister Netanyahu proclaimed that Israel was at war. Simultaneously, Palestinian militants infiltrated Israel from Gaza, using various means, including trucks, motorcycles, and speedboats. They targeted Israeli settlements and military bases, leading to casualties among Israeli civilians and soldiers. In response, Israel activated its Iron Dome defense system and initiated Operation Iron Swords. The IDF declared a state of readiness for war, closed roads around the Gaza Strip, and called up tens of thousands of army reservists. The situation escalated rapidly. This conflict has drawn significant international attention and condemnation. While Western countries and their allies have criticized Hamas for the violence, many Muslim-majority nations have blamed the Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories for the escalation. To understand the context of this conflict, it's essential to acknowledge the ongoing blockade of Gaza, which has been in place since 2007. This blockade has had severe humanitarian consequences, leading to economic hardship and contributing to the tensions in the region. Before the October attack, there were several violent incidents in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, including clashes, settler attacks, and rising tensions in Jerusalem. Hamas commander Mohammed Deif cited the desecration of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and previous Israeli actions as reasons for the offensive. He called on Palestinians and Arab Israelis to resist and expel the occupiers. Notably, Hamas and Israel had recently negotiated a truce mediated by Qatar, Egypt, and the United Nations. However, the conflict erupted despite these efforts. Interestingly, Israel and Saudi Arabia were conducting negotiations to normalize relations, but Saudi Arabia had warned about the consequences of Israel's ongoing occupation of Gaza. A spokesperson for Palestinian Islamic Jihad made a controversial statement, asserting that they do not consider Israeli citizens to be civilians. This statement added another layer of complexity to the situation. Now, let's delve into the critical events that unfolded during this conflict, beginning with the Palestinian offensive. On the morning of October 7, Hamas launched Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, firing thousands of rockets into Israel in a short span. These rockets caused casualties and damage in Israeli cities. Simultaneously, Palestinian militants infiltrated Israel using various means, leading to hostage situations, attacks on Israeli communities, and a tragic incident at an outdoor music festival. In response to these events, Israel activated its defense systems, called up reservists, and declared a state of emergency. The IDF initiated Operation Iron Swords and began targeting Hamas military compounds. The conflict escalated further on October 8, with Israel launching airstrikes on numerous targets in Gaza. Tragically, civilian casualties began to mount, raising concerns about the humanitarian impact. The Israeli government formally declared a state of war for the first time since the 1973 Yom Kippur War. The IDF intensified its efforts, called in more reservists, and aimed to eliminate Hamas's military capabilities. Evacuations of residents near the Gaza Strip were ordered, and major airports in southern and central Israel were closed to civilian use. The situation remained tense. This conflict had ripple effects globally, with multiple countries expressing concern and offering their perspectives on the situation. It remains a deeply complex and sensitive issue. On October 9, the conflict escalated dramatically. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, reportedly struck 500 targets in the Gaza Strip overnight, leading to dozens of casualties, including children. This included densely populated areas like the Jabalia refugee camp. Hamas responded with threats to execute Israeli hostages if the bombardment of civilian homes continued without advanced warning. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant announced a total blockade of the Gaza Strip, a move criticized by Human Rights Watch as abhorrent and possibly a war crime. The IDF evacuated 15 communities around the Gaza Strip perimeter, reflecting the severity of the situation. Beyond Israel and Gaza, tensions also flared. In the occupied West Bank, confrontations with Israeli forces led to the tragic deaths of Palestinian youths, including a 13-year-old. Hezbollah fired rockets and shells at the Shabaa Farms region in response to Israeli actions, leading to further escalation. In a shocking incident, an Egyptian policeman attacked Israeli tourists and their Egyptian guides in Alexandria, resulting in casualties on both sides. This added another layer of complexity to the situation. Protests erupted in various countries, with some expressing solidarity with Israel's right to defend itself, while others blamed the Israeli occupation for the escalation. The human cost of the conflict was immense. Israel saw over 900 fatalities, including soldiers and civilians. Hamas took hostages and captured several IDF personnel. In Gaza, Palestinian casualties soared, with hundreds killed and thousands injured. The United Nations reported over 123,000 Palestinians displaced. Diplomatic efforts were underway to secure the release of prisoners and explore options for de-escalation, but the situation remained volatile. Internationally, reactions varied, with some countries condemning Hamas and expressing support for Israel, while others blamed the Israeli occupation and called for a ceasefire. The conflict also had economic repercussions, impacting oil prices, stock markets, and currencies, both in Israel and Iran. As we analyze these events, it's crucial to remember that the context of the Israeli occupation plays a significant role in the ongoing conflict. The Palestinians' long-standing grievances over the occupation, lack of civil rights, and a suffocating blockade contributed to the escalation. Warnings from leaders across the region, including King Abdullah II of Jordan and Saudi Arabia, had indicated the potential for a catastrophe unless there was political progress. The October 2023 conflict serves as a stark reminder of the complexities and challenges in the Middle East, where conflicts often have far-reaching consequences. Stay tuned as we continue to provide updates and analysis on this evolving situation. Leading up to the conflict, many observers noted an alarming increase in Israeli-Palestinian violence in 2023. Simon Tisdall suggested that this escalation could foreshadow war, highlighting a lack of willingness to negotiate peace and address the Palestinian question. For many Israelis, the Palestinian issue had seemingly faded from the spotlight, with Palestinian rights often disregarded. Some critics argue that the Biden administration did not give sufficient attention to the Palestinian issue, with officials even boasting that the Middle East region had become quieter. This shift in focus had removed the Palestinian question from the global agenda. An analysis by The Independent suggests that the long-standing blockade on Gaza had bred hopelessness among Palestinians. Hamas exploited this despair, convincing young Palestinian men that violence was their only recourse. Previous attempts at conflict resolution through negotiations or nonviolent boycotts had yielded little progress. The Times of Israel's Tal Schneider pointed out that past Israeli governments, led by Benjamin Netanyahu, had taken actions that effectively divided power between the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. This strategy weakened Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas while indirectly strengthening Hamas. The impact of this conflict extended beyond the Israeli-Palestinian arena. The Times of Israel analyzed how Hamas actions disrupted the momentum for a potential US brokered deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, in response, warned of the dangers posed by the occupation and systemic provocations against Palestinian sanctities. As the situation unfolds, it is essential to understand the broader implications of this conflict, not only in terms of immediate consequences but also its impact on regional dynamics and international relations. Thank you for joining us for this overview of the October 2023 Gaza-Israel conflict. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more updates on this and other important global issues.